All right, guys. So I have some boxing updates for you guys. As I'm here, real quick. First one is Roy Jones Jr. versus Mike Tyson. We're hearing that the fight may be official sanctioned fight. I don't know by which sanctioning body, but it seems as though they're looking to try and officially sanction it. I guess because they're having difficulty having it as an exhibition. Of course, the date has been set back a bit, and on that fight card should be actually on that fight card should be Battle Jack fighting on that fight card as well as Vito Riley. I think Battle Jack's facing some guy. I don't know who it is. Um, some more updates. And I heard this via Blue Blood Sports TV actually. So this is secondhand information. Some of you guys probably know it already. That Terrence Crawford might just face Kell Brook, and then Kid Galahad might be facing Gary Russell Jr. So Gary Russell Jr., who was talking about Terrence Crawford, probably was prepping us for a possible Kid Galahad versus himself, which would be a good fight. I mean, it's a good fight. Kid Galahad's a good featherweight fighter. Gary Russell Jr., very good fighter. So that would be a good matchup. Kell Brook, very good fighter. Terrence Crawford, very good fighter. So absolutely, that would be a great matchup. The only problem is we're still in COVID-19. How are these guys going to cross the sea? What's going to happen? Is Terrence Crawford and Gary Russell Jr. supposed to cross the seas to go across to the UK, or are these guys coming across the seas to America to face Gary Russell and Terrence Crawford? But that would be a nice promotion. Bob Arum's talking about that's a good promotion. Um, will that be for 2020, or are we talking 2021? Um, we don't know. I think it's kind of. I think it'll still be those fights will still be here. Bob Arum, Top Rank, ESPN. Hey, he's some good fights. Gary Russell has crossed the seas, crossed the pond, done dealings with Top Rank. It's allowed him to do so with the Lomachenko fight. So I don't see why that won't happen. I think that Kid Galahad is probably working with with Top Rank, so it's probably possible that something like that can happen. Um, some other news that I saw was Billy Joe Saunders tit for tatting with the Charlos, and Tyson Fury, of course, being enthusiastic. I'm hearing that they may not do the Deontay Wilder fight, but they may look at an Anthony Joshua fight. This is what his promoter was saying, but then Bob Arum was saying something else. So I'm not too sure what's really going on with what. So we'll see. Um, and that's again totally up to Deontay Wilder as well, and what he says and what he wants. So uh, it's interesting. That's all I got to say about that. And just want to give you guys some quick updates in boxing. My thoughts on each and every one of these things. One, I think that Deontay Wilder immediately rematching Tyson Fury would be a good thing. But if he wants to give himself a pass, have Tyson Fury face Dillian White next or unify. I'm not too sure if Tyson Fury can just jump in to facing Anthony Joshua without facing Dillian White, because the WBC mandated that Tyson Fury, the winner of Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, face Dillian White. If he's not facing Dillian White next, I guess Tyson Fury will have to put in a request. Not Dillian White, Deontay Wilder. Then I guess he'll have to put in a request to unify all the belts and become undisputed against Anthony Joshua. Then he may have to take the rematch with Deontay Wilder. Then he faces Dillian White, if that's the approach. It all depends on if Tyson Fury is the WBC champion or if Anthony Joshua beats Tyson Fury. So they're gonna have to do like this a lot of stuff there. Let me talk to you guys about Mayweather training the young fighters, having them running and getting into a certain routine. Mayweather's old school. The new school actually don't do running. It's not the first time I've heard this. Victor Conte talked about it. They do like track sprints, but they don't really do long distance running. They do other high impact sports, high impact drills. Sorry, they get more burn and create more endurance for fighters than just running road. But you can run the road. I like to run as well. I'm kind of long distance running, so I don't mind it. But it's not the most effective method today. So, like I said before, a lot of old school stuff. It's not that it's done away with because necessarily skills and abilities of fighters has declined as a result of those things disappearing, but sometimes they just become irrelevant. And one of the things that's kind of irrelevant to boxing now is running and road work. Interesting, but true. There are other activities now, high impact activities you can do that give you the same endurance for boxing than road work and even swimming would do. So it's just one of those interesting things. Um, Still nice to see him giving them the discipline and see him. That's what he did in his time and you know in his era. And that's what I try to explain to people. Like Floyd Mayweather's TBE, right? But it 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 would take it wouldn't take too long, for somebody to start to challenge that and even surpass it, right? Because once again, it has to do, he opened up, he paved the way for these younger fighters, and one of these younger fighters, if not this generation, probably the next generation or the next one, will surpass what he did. They will, and you guys have to be flexible enough to see that, not have any biases. Everybody talk about the Holy Grail of Sugar Ray Robinson, and some people say, well, it's who you like, and no, no, we got to go from a factual basis. Mayweather's TB, not Sugar Ray Robinson. Mayweather's TB, not Muhammad Ali. Mayweather's TB, not some guy 100 years ago. Okay, why? Because boxing as a sport evolves, it gets better. And it's not getting worse; it's getting better. As EG so correctly said, the business of boxing always been there. All right, it's always been there. What we're seeing now, the inner details where fights trying to be formed and then they fall through and they form and they fall through for various reasons. That's always been happening behind the scenes. Boxers been trying to get fights with several different people, and sometimes their fights fall through. People don't know this. Now we're getting a behind the scenes kind of look at boxing today, and a lot of y'all still gonna have your opinions, but that's opinions. That's not factual. Okay. Um, you can't you can't have it easy in the sport. I was listening to Brian Costa talk to the Charlo brothers, and the Charlo brothers was talking about one. Charlo was explaining, when they talked about them using steroids and doping, the Charlos immediately responded to that by saying, "Listen, we work. This is a lifestyle for us. This is not this is not no game." And they were saying that this is what we do. We don't take no performance enhancing drugs. That's cheating. That's you're not confident in your skills. We work every day while the COVID-19 is going on. We're working through the COVID-19. That kind of attitude, that mentality that they were explaining. I listened to Calvin Ford, the trainer for Javante Davis, and he was trying to incorporate in Javante, because Javante's reached a certain level where he's not going to try and tell Javante what to do. And he was saying, you're still. He tried to bring the sentiment to Javante that you're still building something. You still have work to do. Just because you became a world champion doesn't mean you don't have work to do. And so he's trying to inculcate that into Javante. I think Floyd is doing a great job, and Mayweather Promotions, of getting him in shape for when Calvin Ford wants to teach him some of the game plan for what their fight is, because Calvin Ford is actually the guy that's going to be giving him the game plan, what he needs to do, and that kind of thing. And it's the same thing I've been saying all along. And I think that's what made Floyd TBE, whereas these other guys are not TBE. I was listening to, again, another very qualified person in boxing. I'll miss Nassim Richardson, but I was listening to Virgil Hunter break down the TBE of Floyd Mayweather. because I was watching some breakdown videos of him as well. I'm gonna talk a little bit about Floyd for a minute. Um, and some of those breakdown videos don't understand what Floyd Mayweather does. Even though they are teaching, now they're teaching didactic programs. Coach Eric Bradley, the Fight Doctor, Master Boxing. I will always promote that. There's also World Class Boxing. Check out that channel. That give you details. Also, we have Coach Anthony. Uh, Coach Anthony's great. Also breaking down techniques, skills, and different game plan, different different what's the word I'm looking for? Different parts that can break down a game plan. So different attributes of parts or skill sets that you need to have to be able to implement certain game plans. And when I was talking to Coach um, when I was talking to the fight doctor from Master Boxing, Coach Eric Bradley, he was saying certain things work for certain fighters and certain things just don't work for certain fighters. So I was beginning to understand why, because I was asking him about why certain fighters don't roll in and roll out and roll under and away or roll to the side. Why don't fighters do a lot of rolling? And he said, it's just different strokes for different folks. He was trying to explain to me, and it depends on what school of thought you were trained in, etc. But I always thought that rolling in, rolling out, rolling under, and rolling in, I thought those were always great attributes. I mean, the old school fighters did it a little bit more than the modern fighters today. And but some of the modern fighters today. But to me, in being an all-around boxer, you need to know, like, try and master all the techniques. It doesn't matter what style you have. Master the techniques, not just bubble and weave, but rolling in, rolling out, and all that stuff. Rolling to the side, etc. Coach Eric Bradley has footwork drills. To get your feet up to a certain speed, up to a certain rhythm, up to a certain timing, placing them a specific place. Like all of this stuff, it's so complex in some respects. Some people try to break it down, say it's simple, but it's not really simple. It's complex. If you look at it in a totalitarian way of the amount of skill sets you have to have, it's simple in the sense that you learn them one at a time. So it's not like it's going to overwhelm you or anything. You learn it every day, and you get better at it every single day. And the different things you may have to do. You have your different whatever routines, whatever. But I advise people to really check out Coach Eric Bradley. It really will improve your boxing game. It'll take you from just a guy that probably street fight or a guy that never knew how to fight to someone who actually can fight. So you can move up levels. You may not be a professional boxer, you may not be an amateur boxer, but you'll be able to defend yourself. You'll be able to do certain things, be able to understand certain things, be able to see certain things. So that somebody who does not know how to fight, or maybe a street fighter or whatever, you can handle them. And I'm in boxing groups and watching people learn on their own, even, and they do a lot of things incorrectly. But the truth be told, they're learning the sport, and I'm happy when I see more and more people, even celebrities, involved in fights. Now, I don't know what's going to happen as a result of the fight card for Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. becoming an official card. For this is what I'm hearing now. It's an official card. Would it be an official card? Does that mean that Jake Paul is going to be on that official card versus the basketball player Nate Robinson? Is that going to be part of the official card, or what does that mean? So I'm not too sure how exactly, and if this is even true, if this is verifiable, because I got it again, as I said, from Blue Buzz Sports TV. I don't know how verifiable it is, but just information floating around, keeping our minds active so we can talk about something. I don't know what you guys' view on it is. Put your views in the comment section below. If you want to talk to me right now, we're in live feed, so you can check me out there. I need to go get some more water though. With respect to Mayweather, like I was saying, that's the thing about Mayweather. See, that I try to explain to people is his mindset. Now, some people are talking about skill set, so I was going to break down for you. One of the things people were saying was, he would slide to the inside and clinch, but actually, what Floyd does, he doesn't have to clinch. In fact, most of the time, he doesn't clinch. Pacquiao fight clinched like about what, 4, 5, 6 times maybe for the whole entire fight, maybe 10, if so much. But Mayweather does various things. All right. And I saw somebody trying to summarize him. I could tell it was a fan. They were talking about how he slide out to the right or he check hook you and go to the left. What they don't understand is Floyd would either use the jab or it'll collapse into what's called a pyramid shell defense. And then he rolls out from the shell defense. He'll either bump you, he could use the extended guard to wave off the punch. He can slide to the inside of you, get real close to you, just right up and close to you. He either head control you at that point and fight you, or he could pivot around you, or if he wants to, he can clinch up. He could slide into a clinch, so you will actually lock him up. It's not him locking you up. You will lock him up. So he had to slide his. He's clever. He'll slide his head underneath your arm, and you automatically lock him up. And so that from that now he can turn and pivot out of the corner, turn you and pivot out of the corner. Or what he sometimes does is he goes from low to high, and in the case of the Pacquiao fight, he will slide into you. So he's not necessarily clinching you; he's sliding into you, and then you lock him up. You lock up one of his arms. You see, he's tricky like that. You see, a lot of people don't understand. You can't really technically get. You can't really technically say that Floyd's initiating the clinch. He's getting close enough to you. He's extending his arm for you to clamp down, and you just automatically, you automatically clinch him up. See, that's the trick. He plays little trick games on you. There's a lot of little tricks he does, but one of the things he does is very range. So what Floyd will do to you, and this is for all the fighters out there. Here's a little trick of the trade that he does. If Floyd, for example, is he's on the rope. Let's say he's on the ropes, right? And you're trying to throw off your punches or whatever at him. There are times when he will counter you because he knows you're expending energy. And his trick is he wants you as tired as possible. He wants you to wear your own damn self down. So if you're throwing a flurry of punches, he's not even going to engage you. He's just going to, make sure you almost hit him, because it's all about inches. You're almost hitting him, almost hit him. When you emptied out your load, that's when he's going to just kind of, it's not that he can't hit you in between shots. Like, he can sharpshoot you in between shots. And a lot of fighters will tell you he's watching you all the time. He's watching everything you're doing, right? So what happens is you empty your clip, you land maybe on some shoulders, some arms, maybe you get him in the face, whatever. And he's going to now proceed, after you're tired, he's going to proceed to walk out the corner. Right? He's not even going to change range because he knows you're tired. You're trying to now replete the oxygen supply. So he can just walk out the corner. You're not going to do anything. Okay? The other thing he does, which is very tricky, is he'll roll right up on you. The idea is, once you're doing things on a swivel, the idea is on a swivel constantly moving, the head is a very difficult target to hit. A lot of people ask me, well, why is it Floyd dips to one side and nobody actually hits him with a punch? Even in the Castillo fight, Castillo had some success once or twice, but then after that, he couldn't get to his head like he wanted to. When he dipped to the right, I'll tell you why. Especially later on in his career, his defense was called pyramid defense. I'm going to show you a tripod stand, and I'll be able to explain it better that way. So this is a tripod stand, okay? It's forming a pyramid. See that right there? That's a pyramid right there, okay? And can you see the tripod stand? So here's, okay. So there you go. There we go. So this is one leg here, this is another, and this is another. So what Floyd does, perfect example of this is, his lead leg is out here. His back leg is here at an angle, okay, to you. He's at an angle to you. And his head is somewhere back that way, okay? So what happens is, you're throwing a punch, you have to get past his lead leg. So let's say you somehow work your way around his lead leg. Now understand, when he's moving like a crab. He's going to slide backwards and across the ropes. So if he's leaning to the right, he's going to move to the right. All right? So what happens is, he's sliding to the right, going backwards to the right. And you're trying to get past his lead foot. And then you're trying to get towards his body or his head. Problem with that is, he's protecting his body very well, and so he's presenting his body towards you. His head's way back, so you can see when you're coming towards his head. So if you're throwing a shot to his head, and what he does We call it a rock and roll. He can lean back into the ropes and bounce back forward. He can dip. So what you got, let me show you this in three-dimensional space with my hand, okay? So this is my hand here, all right? Let's say this is Floyd Mayweather's head and his torso. He dips back this way. So what happens is he can go further backwards and negate your punch. He could dip downwards and go backwards at the same time, or he can actually swivel down and bump you and slide into you. Remember, the style that Floyd has, and this is why I think it's so integral that a lot of boxers learn to slip and slide, is known as the slip and slide style, according to Virgil Hunter. It's the slip and slide style. So which means that he's very good. Floyd's gonna be very good at sliding to the inside and rolling under. Rolling under and sliding to the inside, and that's why I talk about rolling in, rolling out, knowing how to roll is very important. Okay. It's different to bobbing and weaving. It's different to dipping. Okay. So it's not just slipping a punch. You could throw your load off at Floyd and he would roll under the punch now and bump you with the shoulder up on the inside. He's all the way up on you and you're like, what the fuck just happened, right? So he bumps you with the shoulder, you back off. He also will use, because his forearm is with his shoulder, right? One of the other things he does is he bump you with the shoulder, then he rests his forearm on you to head control you while he spin out, or if he wants to, he could either hit you with a shot, or if he wants to, as he bumps you back, he could shoot a straight right hand while you're going backwards and hit you further backwards. He's got a plethora of options he can do. And this is the one of the things that why a lot of you fighters need to have a certain skill set, because that will enable your chances so that you have a lot of options when you're fighting fighters. And the thing with Floyd is I mean, Pretty Boy Floyd had a lot of skill, okay? But the older Floyd would use his skills smarter. So he worked smarter, not harder. So he was very, very efficient in certain things. He wanted to make sure he had the least amount of risk in that ring. So he would think, Sugar Ray Leonard talks about how he planned fights. Floyd didn't plan fights. He would go into the fight though, and he was able to simplify complex things. He was able to that's the skill Floyd had. He would adapt to you and just do just enough to take advantage of you and to stop you from throwing your flurries or doing the things that you're really good at. He was really good at doing that. And the trick to that he implemented was he never wasted a whole bunch of energy for the fighter. He's always looking for the most efficient way to deal with him. So when you're throwing off 5, 6, 7 punch combinations and stuff, he's staying real cool, crisp, and calm. And he can see, like any martial artist will tell you, you don't go into a fight riled up and angry and all that shit. You can't think straight. You have to stay as calm as possible so you can react to whatever it is really crisply and quickly. So with Floyd, what he do is he's seeing everything you're doing. Once he's seeing everything you're doing, there's no way you can knock him out because he can see every single punch that you're throwing. And the thing with it is, because he could see what you're doing, he could easily counter you. So what a lot of guys, especially volume punchers, and a lot of them not very smart. So the volume punchers didn't know how to. Why I say they weren't very smart is a guy like Roy Jones Jr. would not approach Floyd the way how Sugar Ray Robinson would approach Floyd. Let's put it that way. And I know you guys are gonna be like, man, you going in on Sugar Ray Robinson? Sugar Ray Robinson? I'm gonna explain myself. So Sugar Ray Robinson was a guy that would overpower sometimes his opponents. He had skill, don't get me wrong. He had nice trickery and he had little game plan things he did, like Terrence Crawford. But because he liked to engage so much, like Sugar Ray Leonard, Terrence Crawford, and Sugar Ray Robinson, that could be set up. They could be set up. You see, a smart fighter set him up. And Floyd is just that kind of fighter. Okay. And that's the thing I think a lot of people don't understand. You like to engage too goddamn much, and you meet a chess player, not a checkers player now. Okay. I'm not saying that Sugar Ray Robinson was a checkers player per se. He was a chess player too. So was Sugar Ray Leonard. But them guys not on the level of a Floyd. All right. They're not. And I try to explain this to people, so I'm going to break it down so you guys can understand what I'm saying again from a boxing perspective. And this is why I said Floyd is TBE. You can take the greatest. I don't give a damn about the greatest. Okay, I really don't. And I'm gonna tell you why. I don't care if people think that your fights were. A lot of people think that Hearns versus Hagler was the greatest fight ever, and that made Hearns great. Hearns for that fight, stupid as hell. All right. So you could take the greatest. All right, you could take the greatest from me. I prefer to beat Hearns with the skill set and what he had was supposed to comprehensively make Marvin Hagler look like an idiot. He was supposed to beat him comprehensively, and somewhere around the 10th, somewhere around the 13th, 14th, 15th round, just put a beating on his ass. All right, that was what he's supposed to have done to Marvin Hagler. All right, I'm gonna tell you why. Thomas Hearns had a very good jab. He had a very good left hook and a very good left uppercut, and he had a very good right hand. He had decent footwork. That's all you need to beat a Marvin Hagler. You got to make him go find you. All right? Sugar Ray Leonard did it. Sugar Ray Leonard did it. And Sugar Ray Leonard had a little bit more skill than Thomas Hearns in terms of how he fought in the pocket and stuff. But Thomas Hearns had all that reach advantage and all. You're supposed to make this guy work to get to the inside of you. Make him work for 13, 14, 15 rounds. Make sure you're in perfect condition. And all you doing is trap setting this dude and getting out and spinning out. That was supposed to happen all night long. All right, Thomas Hearns was supposed to be able to execute that game plan. He fought the fight so stupid. So I don't want no title of greatest. I don't want to hear about it. A lot of people talk about all these guys 100 years ago, and they paved the way for smart fighters like Floyd and Pernell Whitaker and Roy Jones Jr., but they're not better than them. They're not better than them. And I don't care if you say they had 100 and something, 300 and something, 400 and something fights. They're not better than them. They're not. I don't care what y'all say. And I could prove it. Because, like I said before in the ring, it's about fighting smart. So guys that like to engage too goddamn much for their own good rely more on their physical ability. And they're not calculating chess and playing chess all the way through. Because sometimes less is more. If you just banging, okay? If you're just banging, here's what happens. You become predictable. And if a guy's paying attention, he gonna know exactly where inside of that bang to drop his punch. All of a sudden, you're not banging no more. All your combinations stop because you got frozen. All right? And then if he wants to, he can tag you up a bit and then back off. See, a lot of fighters, I was explaining this to a guy because he was talking about, throwing combinations. And he was talking about when you're throwing combinations, you're open. Not necessarily. You're not necessarily open for counter if you're throwing combinations. But you got to know where to put your body, where to position yourself to throw those combinations so that you can take advantage of the situation that your opponent's not in. I'll give you an easy example. So we talk about weak side attack. Vasily Lomachenko's a guy that's king of that. And it's simple. He'll feint you as if he's going to come straight to you. And as World Class Boxing Channel will tell you, instead, what he does is he goes low. He feints low as if he's about to throw a jab. And instead of throwing a jab, he rolls out and pivots to the side, throwing a lead left. But before he does that, he's going to hand check you or hand control. Make sure you keep your jabbing hand at home by using his right hand to knock down the jab before you throw the jab. And then he throws the lead left and pivots off to the right. By the time you start to pivot off to the right to find him, he done offload already. A left to the gut or right overhand right, left to the gut. Maybe a 3 punch combination, 4 punch combination. Run back to the center, and here you are trying to pivot back to find him. By then he throws a jab or he throws another left hand. You see Manny Pacquiao do it to Oscar De La Hoya. You see Manny Pacquiao do it to Joshua Clottey. You see Manny Pacquiao do it to Antonio Margarito. Okay. You're not going to get countered when the guy's out of position because he still has to catch, turn around, and face you. So you can throw combinations and not be hit. That's first point. Second point is that smart fighters always mix up their offensive game. You don't come to a guy the same way with the same skill unless the guy not smart and he can't make adjustments. If he can't make adjustments to your game, of course you're going to use that thing over and over and over again. But if he does make adjustments to it, then you come with something else because you see how the holes in his defense. So you're able to mount certain offensive sets, shall we say. So this is the thing that I want you guys to understand, and it's very important you get it because um, a lot of times a lot of people just don't get the level at which these modern fighters today are at, and all these younger fighters now seeing what guys like Mayweather and guys like Pacquiao and guys like Marquez have done. Marquez is another very interesting fighter because Marquez again very smart fighter, right? He don't have that quickness, he don't have that speed. He a bit tough. He got to be a little bit tough to be able to, but he uses the basic defense. He knows and understands certain basic things. He's not in Mayweather's category in terms of smartness, but for a vet, he's pretty smart. He's pretty wily. He's pretty crafty. Okay, so when I talk about these things, James Toney, was an excellent fighter, but I mean he got beat by certain people. All right, that he should not have been beaten by. And again, that's on him. Okay, it's not about having. A lot of people say, "Well, this guy don't have enough offense. Well, this guy don't have enough defense." I want to break it down. It's not about how much offense, how much quantitative defense you have. It's about being, remember this word, effective. In boxing, it's all about being effective. Hold on a second. I need to go. Yeah. It's the effective punches we care about. It's not the quantity of punches. It's not how much punches you're throwing. None of that stuff. Sometimes trainers tell guys, you need to let your hands go. That's cool. But what does that mean? Well, we rehearsed everything, so now just let your. The guy can't let his hands go. You know why the guy's hands is home? Because the opponent is keeping his hands at home. The opponent is doing something to keep his hands at home. He's not just keeping his hands at home for no reason. See, defensively responsible offense teaches you how to keep your opponent from doing certain things you don't want them to do to make them engage back at you. And when you're using when you're using those kinds of tools, it don't really matter how much the other guy can fight. I'll give you an example again. So I gave you the example with Lomachenko and how he would keep his opponent's hand, his left hand, at home, right? So he tapped the left hand, then he come over the top with his offense, which would be his lead left to the guy's head or his body or whatever he wants to go. And that hand is left at home. Because what I do, I tap that hand to make sure it's there and it stays in place. So he won't pop the jab while I'm trying to make this move. Canelo Alvarez, he would check your bicep, right? So he would take his lead hand and touch your bicep, or even the bicep of the jabbing hand, because Sergey Kovalev is a jabber. But because Sergey Kovalev was throwing his jabs so often and the same way, is able to time it so he could catch him just before he throws his jab and freeze it. So again, you take the lead hand. The lead hand is so important in boxing for different reasons. A lot of people just only use their lead hand as jabbing hands. But everybody, the people who are in boxing know all the little tricks of the trade of how to keep a guy's lead hand from going. Because your lead hand's like your feeler. Your lead hand tells you the range. Your lead hand tells you the target, where it is. Your lead hand is very important for a lot of things. So if that lead hand can't go out there and find out information for you so that you could target your opponent and hit them, guess what will happen? You don't have no target. And then the lead hand can be used for defense to find out the distance. And you can't even find out the distance with your opponent's coming because they kept your lead hand at home. Now they're the people who have the advantage on you. So this is what a lot of people don't understand about boxing. Like they talk about these past greats and they don't understand. They talk about, oh, this guy faced this guy and this guy, and who on that list faced this guy and this guy. I say, well, we got people comparable. They're not as great as those guys in terms of reputation and greatness, but we got guys that are comparable. But here's the thing: I want you to know, just because you saw a dominant performance by one guy doesn't mean that the other guy can do that same and replicate that dominant performance from the past. One of those past guys do that because this guy's doing some different things that those guys didn't do in their time. Why they had all these big life and death battles with each other, because they didn't do certain things at that time. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't know how to hand check guys and all of that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you can see from a certain fighting style, certain guys, they fought their way through certain things. They fought their way through certain things. And of course, at a certain point in time, sometimes you have to resort to fighting. But most of the time, uh, it's all about using this. See what I'm saying? And it's not just boxing IQ. You can have a lot of boxing IQ, but yeah, because you're mentally weak or you have a bad game plan, it doesn't really matter. So when you can follow and understand certain things about boxing, it really makes it much more easier for you to understand as a fan, an educated fan, why certain fighters were successful at what they were doing. A lot of these young fighters out here today, they had all of this experience and this information that they begin to learn from these older fighters. Okay, and there's always older fighters, coaching, training, educating, and stuff like that. I don't know the details of it, but I can tell you that just from my little knowledge of boxing that I have and seen and watch at what these fighters be telling me, that boxing is so much more than just getting in there and banging out or getting in there and having exciting fights. And what you see today, what people are calling basic is not basic. I saw some two young boxers. They were facing each other. One's trying to go weak side, and he spun weak side only to see the other guy facing him, because the other guy realized what he was going to do. He understood the play, and he kept on turning with him. And the idea is, and you got to understand, whether you're fighting a southpaw or orthodox, the trick to it is that certain things that guys could have gotten away with in the past, you today you can't get away with it just like that. Okay. Anyway, I'm what you need. We were just trying to get some updates on some current events, and I decided to just throw in these few little stuff, um, and also try to explain to you guys in more detail, more boxing. I like talking boxing. I don't really like talking, just a bunch of bullshit out of my ass. So the next time you guys see me, which might be tonight, we may have another discussion on boxing. I'm gonna catch you guys later. I'm what you need. You watch my channel. If you like what you're seeing, don't forget that you can always donate via Western Union to my channel. But in addition to that, I also would like you to share my videos if you like them, and comment on my videos if you like them. I'm out. Peace.